Like Ted Cruz recently did before him, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham went on Sean Hannity's show on Fox News to publicly sound the alarm and beg for money because the Democrats are outspending the Republicans colossally in the Senate races. But Lindsey also said some other things that we need to sound the alarm about on the left. So before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, I've got a couple of clips to show you, and it's a mixed bag. Number one, it's fun to watch Republican politicians panic at the prospect of them losing. It's schadenfreude. It's like catnip. We should salivate and nourish it. It nourishes us. We should really savor the moment. But they also say some things which should also freak us out and should make us sound the alarm. So we're going to play the clip of Lindsey Graham panicking on Sean Hannity, and then we're going to talk about the great stuff about that and the really scary stuff about it as well.
The United States Senate needs to have enough Republicans to help this president enact his agenda. I don't want 51, I want more. So I'm here tonight to give you a wake-up call. You said every vote counts. Well, every donation counts too. We're getting creamed on the Senate when it comes to raising money. Wisconsin, Ohio, and Michigan, our candidates are being outraised 3-1. So tonight, please go to lindseygraham.com. I haven't asked all cycle 1 penny, and anything you give will be divided between those 3 Rust Belt states. Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio. We're leading in 2 of the 3. 53 senators is a much better deal for Trump than 51. What about the Supreme Court? If he's president of the United States with a Republican Senate, we can have a generation of conservatives on the Supreme Court. This is a very big deal to shape the court for the next generation. It's a very big deal to get the commander-in-chief that can bring the region together to peace. We're getting We're getting outspent 4 and 5 and 6 and 8 and 10-1. The conservative world needs to step up and help these men and women who are running for the Senate.
Again, there's so much there that's so gratifying to hear them say we're getting creamed or we're getting outspent 3 to 4 to 5 to 10-1. That's great. You can hear the panic in his voice. You can see it on his face. It's so good. It feeds the schadenfreude. On the other hand, he said some really scary things, which should scare the hell out of us. So just as a reminder.
In Senate, we can have a generation of conservatives on the Supreme Court. This is a very big deal to shape the court for the next generation.
Let's talk about that part. Okay, here's the reality. The Senate is most likely to flip for the Republicans. I know some people in my audience are not going to be happy about me telling that, but these are the facts. The fact is it's most likely to flip Republican. It's not a fact that it will flip Republican. We have an opportunity to change that if we turn out and vote. But probabilistically speaking, the Senate is more likely than not to flip Republican. And we need to talk about that. There's a reason Lindsey Graham is panicking here. So the presidential race is effectively a coin flip, right? If you really had to prefer a candidate in terms of who had the greater chance, it would still probably be Vice President Harris. She has the fundraising. She has more leads often than not, but these things are within the margin of error. It's effectively a coin flip. I would say the Senate elections are not effectively a coin flip. There is a clear probability that the Republicans win. Again, it is not set in stone, and we need not accept it. We need to turn out and vote. If we vote en masse, we win. If they have their greatest number of voters and we have our greatest number of voters, we win because the anti-Trump coalition outnumbers the Trump coalition. Get your asses out there and vote. But if we don't, and Republicans win the Senate, that's disastrous. And there's, again, a reason that Lindsey Graham is freaking out. Here's what I mean. Let's say that Donald Trump wins the presidency. Of the House, the Senate, and the presidency, the one we want to lose the least is the presidency, because pound for pound, the presidency is the most powerful office, right? If you can only have one, you want the White House. The White House can do a lot via executive action. It controls the executive branch. It can set DOJ priorities, and it can veto bad legislation from the Republicans. So let's say Republicans keep the House, they get the Senate, but we take the White House. Kamala wins the White House. A Republican Senate could pass anything they want, and if it's bad, Vice President Harris, then President Harris can say, screw that, here's the veto, and they couldn't overcome it because you would need a 2/3 supermajority in both chambers. They will not get that. We need all three. We need the House, which we're favored to win, right? So the way it looks is Democrats are more likely than not favored to win the House. That's not set in stone either, but it's more likely than not. The presidency is a coin flip, and the Senate is the opposite of the House. It's more likely than not to flip Republican. We need all three because you've seen what the past 2 years have been under President Biden. Because Republicans control the House, we've gotten nothing done because they will never work with the Democratic president. That age of bipartisanship is gone. It died with this MAGA Republican majority in the House. We have no reason to believe that it will be any different next year. We need all three. Lindsey Graham recognizes they need all three too, or at the very least, they need 2 out of 3. Because here's how he says it. If Trump becomes president, but Democrats are in control of the Senate, well, that's an effective check on Trump. Not the most effective, and Trump could still do a ton of damage as president. But let's say Trump becomes president, we have a Democratic Senate, and there are Supreme Court vacancies. Let's say Alito retires, or Thomas retires, or one or both of them pass away. In order for Trump to get his Supreme Court nominees, it would have to pass a Democratic Senate. Very, very, very unlikely. Then we could go back and either block him totally and say, no, you're not getting a damn one. This is payback for Merrick Garland. This is payback for Amy Coney Barrett. This is payback for Senate Republicans breaking the rules, creating new rules, then breaking the very rule that they created in order to get you a Republican supermajority so you don't get a damn one. Or they say, we will confirm Supreme Court appointments, but you're going to have to make them reasonable, moderate appointments. You're not going to get a MAGA Republican on this court. A Democratic Senate could block that. What a Democratic Senate probably couldn't do is block a lot of the shenanigans in the executive branch. So, for example, typically Republican cabinets, they need to be Senate confirmed. You want a Secretary of Defense, it's got to be Senate confirmed. You want an Attorney General, it's got to be Senate confirmed. A Democratic Senate could stop or at least be a potential roadblock for some of the crazier nominees of the Trump administration. But there's also a workaround. Donald Trump as president can appoint acting secretaries of state and defense and attorneys general and basically give them most of the powers, if not all of the powers, of a Senate confirmed member of that office. So again, I want to be clear. Please don't get complacent. Please don't think, okay, all right, well, Donald Trump can win the White House as long as we get a Democratic Senate. No. A Democratic Senate is better than nothing because there's some things like Supreme Court justices that we could stop or moderate. But I want to be very clear. If Donald Trump wins the White House, he will become the most powerful man on earth again. And there are ways around the Senate blocking him. Oh, you won't confirm my Supreme Court, you won't confirm my Attorney General? I'll just make this so-and-so an acting Attorney General. And that sidesteps Senate confirmation, at least for a time. A lot of damage can be done that way. So again, I just want to go back to this. The reason Lindsey Graham is panicking is because he recognizes that if Trump wins the White House, a Democratic Senate could be a serious roadblock to some critical things, not all, but some critical things that Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans want to do. It would certainly prevent a MAGA majority court. And here, that's the big one. That's why I wanted to bring this to your attention. Donald Trump is making it very clear, and Lindsey Graham is repeating, that if Trump wins the White House and they get a Republican Senate, it will not just be a conservative supermajority on the court. They already have that. It would be a MAGA majority. I want you to think about this. If Donald Trump becomes president and there's a Republican Senate, Justice Alito and Justice Thomas will almost certainly retire. And that means 2 Supreme Court vacancies that Trump can nominate and a Republican Senate will confirm. And that could be Supreme Court Justice Cannon, the same Judge Cannon who tossed out the classified documents vote. Why not? There's nothing preventing that. It could be Supreme Court Justice Matt Gaetz. It could be there could be anybody. Do you think that a Republican Senate would stop it? And even if you think they might, would you really want to bet on that? Probably shouldn't bet on Republicans stopping Trump because they have a terrible record at doing so. Probably shouldn't have religious faith in that. Probably should go with probability on it and look at their past performance. If Trump becomes president and there's a Republican Supreme Court, there will be a MAGA majority. You will have Gorsuch, you will have Kavanaugh, you will have Amy Coney Barrett. Those are 3 Supreme Court justices appointed by Trump. And then Alito will retire. So that's a 4th MAGA justice. And then Thomas will retire. That's a 5th MAGA justice. And then the real nightmare scenario is, what if something happens to Justice Elena Kagan or Justice Sotomayor? They're not exactly super young. Justice Sotomayor, if I'm not mistaken, has health issues. I think she's a diabetic who has to walk around at all times with a medic. Something tragic could happen to her, and then you get a 6th. Donald Trump, in theory. What you think about this, folks? There are multiple timelines in the multiverse where Donald Trump wins this election, gets a Republican Senate, and has already appointed 3 MAGA justices, and then we'll get to appoint 3 more to replace Thomas, Alito, and Sotomayor. Do you really want that? Lindsey Graham's laying it all out here. The reason he's upset is because he knows that this is a huge win for them that is in serious jeopardy, because Trump may not win the White House. And yes, Republicans are favored to win the Senate, but it's not guaranteed. There's a serious risk for them. That's why he's freaking out, because they know that they are so close to victory, but it's still out of reach. Do not give Donald Trump an opportunity to stack the court even further, not just with a conservative supermajority, but a MAGA Republican supermajority. Do not give him that opportunity. Continue to canvass, continue to door knock, continue to raise the alarm about this. Donate if you can, but above all else, make sure you and your loved ones have a plan to vote. Voting is the only thing. It's even more important than fundraising. We don't elect people based on dollars. Dollars certainly help, and there's a correlation between dollars spent and people who win. Again, not always, but at the end of the day, it is your vote that matters most. This is what's at risk. There's a reason that Lindsey Graham is freaking out. Take it very seriously. They could lose. We can cost them this. We can deny them this. And I think we have a moral obligation to make it happen. So if you want to prevent a Trump presidency and a MAGA conservative supermajority on the court that will span decades, you should vote blue in November. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.